When we were in Kherson, there was no water. People were hauling it out of the river. There was no electricity. People were in the dark and the cold, and there was very little food. And these are people who've suffered so much under 9 months of Russian occupation. Many of them tried to sabotage that. But there were some who collaborated with the Russians, not least in the field of history and culture. Now, this is really significant because President Putin always says that Ukraine isn't an independent country and Ukrainians don't have their own culture. He says that it's all part of Russia, just like it was in the Soviet Union and more significantly during the Russian Empire of the 18th century. This is one of the key drivers of this war. And so in the 2 weeks before Russian forces withdrew, they went on a systematic looting spree. They took European paintings from the museums, paintings in which the people of Kherson had huge pride. They connected them to Europe. It was a really good collection. And also relics, Russian relics, like in the medieval times. And this is all part of President Putin's nostalgic imperial project. Ukraine's national anthem echoes across the streets of Kherson. Russian posters have been torn down. This is a culture war, a brutal battle for the soul and identity of a people.
Прошу. Тут стояли величезні роботи.
No one knows that better than the director of the Kherson Art Museum, famed for having one of Ukraine's best collections of European paintings, which she had put in storage.
Тут була Британія, Франція, Італія, Польща, Латвія. Тут було, це великі фонди, і тут було з 17-го живопис по 20 століття.
Over 5 days, just before they withdrew, Russian soldiers turned up in trucks and stole the most valuable paintings, icons and sculptures.
Тут нема було, де яблуку впасти. 14 тисяч предметів обігу. Зараз скільки осталось, я не можу знати.
They did everything they could to protect this collection. They put it in storage and they locked the doors. But look, everything's gone. It's not the monetary value, it's the cultural value. That's incalculable for the people of Kherson and Ukraine. According to the director, 5 of the 20 museum staff collaborated with the Russians, telling them exactly what was where. She's been sent photos of the paintings which the soldiers took to a museum in Simferopol, the capital of Russian-occupied Crimea. She can recognize the markings and labels. Ukraine's Minister of Culture came from Kyiv to tour the Kherson Art Museum and see what's been lost. Are you shocked?
Shocked. Shocked, it's not the word. I'm furious because this particularly show what does Russia mean when they're fighting against our identity. So if there are our heritage, there is our identity. If they stole heritage, they believe that we wouldn't continue to live and to create, but we will.
One woman filmed from her apartment Russian soldiers coming in the dead of night to the main pedestrian street. The next day, everyone could see the empty plinth from which they'd removed the statue of the 18th century general Alexander Suvorov, one of 3 statues honoring Russian imperial heroes that the Russians stole. St. Catherine's Cathedral contained a relic with even more resonance for President Putin. For him, religion and history have become inseparable. He often says that he regards Ukraine as part of Russia, as it was at the height of the Russian Empire. The bones of Prince Potemkin, Catherine the Great's lover, who founded Kherson in 1778, have lain here since his death. The priest took me into the vault from where Russian soldiers stole the bones in late October, not for money, but because this is a war of imperial reconquest.
На этом постаменте лежал гроб с останками князя Потемкина. Да, и россияне в один из вечеров приехали и вынесли отсюда гроб с его останками. Да. Теперь это место пустое. Да. Это место, где его останки лежали более 200 лет. Да.
The Russian ideology that made them steal Potemkin's bones, is that the same ideology which made them invade Ukraine?
Да, без сомнения, так и есть, да. Это их главная двигательная сила, да. Возрождать империю, вот, и они применяют для этого силу, насилие, и они совершали насилие над теми, кто здесь живет, во имя вот этих своих идей, да. Из-за этой мнимой связи с прошлым.
Armies have looted and claimed God is on their side since time immemorial. Today, the Russian state has embarked on the kind of plunder Potemkin himself would have recognized, as if stealing the emblems of the past could recreate it, now in the 21st century. Now, the Ukrainian prosecutor is going through the museum and they are cataloguing everything, and they will start some kind of prosecution as soon as they can. It may well be an international prosecution, and they will do their best to make sure that none of those paintings get sold on the international market. UNESCO, that's the UN cultural organisation, has also been informed. But it's hard to see how any of that is going to come back. For the Ukrainians, it's the paintings that matter most, because that was such an amazing collection. And as for Potemkin's bones, that means less and less to Ukrainians and more to Russians. But I think it shows you something of what's driving this conflict, which is, seems so modern in so many ways, but in other ways it really isn't for the Russians. One way in which it is, again, something that has always happened in war is the physical misery. About 20 to 30,000 of those Russian troops who were in Kherson and who then withdrew to the other side of the river have now gone northeast up to Donetsk. That is now the most active front line in this war. They are pounding each other, Ukrainians and Russians, with artillery. And over the next few weeks, we're going to see more death, both in terms of soldiers and in terms of civilians, because even though people talked about the war slackening off during the autumn and the winter, as yet we see no sign of that.
Lindsay Hilson in Dnipro. Well, later there will be a dubbed version of Lindsay's report available on our website. Well, earlier I spoke to the Russian opposition politician Mikhail Kasyanov, who was Vladimir Putin's first prime minister. And I began by asking him how pivotal a moment he believes Russia's withdrawal from Kherson really is.
It's absolutely significant, absolutely. And it's more important that after the, I would say, annexation and change of constitution, putting in Kherson region into Russian constitution, just 2 weeks after a liberation took place. And Kherson, the city, the capital of Kherson region, is under Ukrainian control again.
What does it tell us about the trajectory of the war?
I think that's where we see just all those offensive operations of Ukrainian army with the support of all these military supplies by Western countries, of course, goes slowly but effective. And I think just we should expect, I would say, change of overall attitude in Russia. By the way, first of all, by Russian people, by those soldiers which were mobilized without their desire, and many of them just right now used as a, I would say, war meat in the battlefield, which is absolutely awful what's taking place, and it is a changing of all attitude of Russian society to Mr. Putin and to the war.
Now, alongside this, the human brutality, our international editor Lindsay Hilson has been reporting on the cultural plundering, if you like, of Ukraine by Russian forces, the taking of Potemkin's bones, and the taking of all the art from the art museum. What's going on there?
That's absolutely awful events. Just it demonstrates that Mr. Putin and his team, they're just very nervous, and they would like to demonstrate something to Russian people. And in fact, right now, Putin tries to pick up everything to demonstrate that it was Russian land. And that is one of these, was a signal and artificial attempt to demonstrate to Russian people that Kherson region was always Russian.
What about Putin himself? You know him, you've worked with him. I mean, at the beginning of this war, there was so much speculation. He's mad, he's dying, he's got some terrible illness, he's lost his mind. That was all nonsense, wasn't it? I mean, he knows what he's doing.
For me, it was absolutely clear that he is absolutely, from medical perspective, he's normal, but he's crazy in terms of political health. And he's looking in a very narrow corridor. But he cannot escape. He doesn't know what to do. That's why we see how nervous he is. And he lost Kherson right now, and he is more nervous. And I know how he behaves right now in Kremlin with all these people, because I have some signals from there. He just shouting for everyone.
So he's not a mastermind?
He's not a mastermind. Yeah, he's a very, very nervous situation, because he doesn't create a maneuver field for himself. He put everything. He tried to create fear by promising, or by trying to see just nuclear use could be take place. But right now, this cards already completely played out.
If he doesn't get what he wants in Ukraine, there is nobody there to push him out, is there, in truth? I mean, doesn't he remain the leader of Russia?
I think he will not remain the leader of Russia by a certain time. First, as soon as there will be, I would say, military defeat, Mr. Putin will be viewed as a loser. For him, mentally for him, it's very dangerous. He is a person who cannot accept to be seen as a weak person.
But doesn't the defeat of Putin mean the defeat of Russia? And the end of the dream of Russia's return as a superpower?
That will be defeat of Putin's Russia, but not necessarily of Russia. I am saying just in any case, not Russia, because Russia would restore.
Mr. Kasyanov, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.